In the rugged wilderness of the 19th century American West, a lone figure stands against the backdrop of the Rocky Mountains. This is John Jeremiah Garrison Johnston, good old Triple J, a man whose life is shrouded in myth and bloodshed, known as liver-eating Johnson. His story is a tapestry woven from the threads of revenge and survival. The year is 1847, in the Alder Gulch territory of Montana. Johnston, a mountain of a man, stands over the smoldering remains of his log cabin, his heart as scorched as the earth beneath him. His wife, a member of the Flathead tribe, lies lifeless, taken from him by the crow, igniting a rage that would become the stuff of legends. As the sun sets over the jagged peaks, Johnston makes a vow of vengeance that will see him become both feared and revered. His path is one of relentless pursuit, a journey that will have him clash with nature, tribes, and his own demons. In the shadows of the mountains, Johnston's tales unfold, a saga of a man who turned grief into a relentless pursuit of revenge, his actions echoing through the valleys and into the annals of Wild West lore. So get ready to learn about one man's unquenchable thirst for vengeance in today's epic, historical quarrel. Welcome back to Historical Quarrels, everyone. I am your host, Tyler Eckhart. Pretty excited for today's episode, guys. We're going to be going over the life of John Jeremiah Johnston, Triple motherfucking J. For those of you who don't know this show or are just getting introduced to it, we are a historical podcast, a NSFW historical podcast. So if you are listening to this expecting me to, just give the facts, be something that's like child friendly, you could maybe watch this in front of your grandparents. Well, if your grandma and grandpa are cool, maybe you can, but probably don't listen to this in front of children. I will be going over grisly details. I will probably be making jokes about even grislier details, or just like making some stuff up that's even worse because my head just works like that. I'm a little crazy. Fair warning. It's just a fair warning. I feel like that's something everybody deserves, and that's what everyone's going to get when they, listen to the show. They'll be warned beforehand, before it gets a little too wild. As many of you have noticed already, today's episode is going to be the first one that I have ever done completely recorded and is going up on YouTube as well. If you're listening to this, you have the opportunity when you get home to turn on YouTube, to go to our YouTube channel, and you can see me. It's going to be boring. Just some people thought it was a good idea for me to do. I might try and do some fancy editings in here. And if I do, I'll leave room for a second for my fancy editing skills to show up. So ding. Announcements for today. Not a whole lot, honestly. Just if you haven't already checked out our other podcast, at least the one that I do with my buddies called Hard Homies Podcast, please go do so. We've been having a lot of fun there. It's a good time. It's a lot more laid back. Definitely a lot less research, more of us just riffing and having fun. Other announcements are I'm looking into getting some stuff ready for a merch drop here soon. So that's going to be pretty cool. We're going to do some merch. Potentially, maybe, probably. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And final announcement is we are going to be doing more true crime stuff. Thank you guys for liking last week's episode and sharing it as much as you did. I noticed. So I'm going to try and do some more true crime stories here in the future. It will probably follow the exact same format where I'm just going to tell you the story and then I'll go over why it's probably not true in historical context, or why it is true. So it's going to be more of like a historical true crime, but like not entirely true crime, but I'm just going to call it true crime because I don't know what the hell else to call it. You're going to have to deal with that. That being said, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Wild West lore that is liver-eating Johnson, he's a man who is said to have eaten or killed over 300 indigenous Crow people, or people from the indigenous tribe of the Crow. And it was because they killed his wife, who was a member of the Flathead tribe. And also, probably just because he fucking hated them in general. He didn't have a very strong opinion of, he called them Indians, and we'll hear that a lot today. So no, when I say Indians, it's not coming from me. It's mostly coming from the stories that I'm pulling. Also, just kind of for today, so you guys understand this, a lot of these tales are oral tradition that have been passed on by a man named Del Guy, or Del Guy, or Guy. And he's kind of like the main narrator from this book where I'm pulling a lot of today's information from. And so just realize I will kind of go over that at the end after the episode's over. Oh, this is also going to be a 2-part episode. This is going to be a 2-parter, guys. So that was the other warning. Okay. Getting my head on straight. Sorry, I'm just getting used to knowing where to look with the camera. It's weird. I'm trying to... Okay, I'm good. Right. So, with this being a 2-parter, we're going to be first exploring what is a mountain man, and kind of what led up to mountain men being so dominant in America. Well, being a predominant kind of cultural thing in America. We'll go over that, and then we'll get into the beginning life story of liver-eating Johnson right up to a very climactic point, and then we'll be continuing next week with the rest of the tale, and ending with a climactic point. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I had a really good time reading through this book and pulling all the information that I did, writing a bunch of stuff up. Man, you guys are in for a treat today. So that's enough preamble. Let's go ahead and get into it. You are listening to Historical Quarrels. Okay, so to begin today's episode, let's answer the question, what are mountain men? Well, mountain men were quintessential figures in the early American frontier, embodying the spirit of adventure and exploration during a time of rapid westward expansion. These rugged individuals roamed the North American Rocky Mountains from the early 1800s to the mid-19th century, driven by the burgeoning fur trade. Their primary role was trapping and trading furs, with a particular focus on beaver pelts, which were highly sought after in Europe for hat making. Yeah, that's Europeans. They love their beaver fur. Clearly, that's a terrible joke. This profession required not just courage, but a deep understanding of the wilderness and its many dangers. If you didn't understand the wilderness, you're more than likely going to get your asshole eaten by a grizzly bear. So that's kind of the trade-off there. You could go in the wilderness, you can go in, but if you don't understand it and trying to go into this profession, you're dying like that. Your butthole's getting eaten by a grizzly. Not as fun as you would think it would be. Talking from experience. The lifestyle of a mountain man was one of isolation and resilience. They spent months or years in the wilderness, away from the burgeoning settlements of the East. Their survival in the rugged terrain depended on a wide array of skills, including hunting, fishing, trapping, and the ability to craft clothing and shelter for the materials at hand. These skills were often honed over years of living in the wild, making mountain men some of the most adept and self-reliant figures of their time. Interaction with Native American tribes as well was a very significant aspect of the mountain men's lives. This would include the trade of skills. A lot of the Native Americans and their tribes were already kind of used to doing this shit by hand, and they didn't have Europeans helping them at all. Matter of fact, they were fucking them over constantly with a lot of things. So while some of these interactions were marked by conflict, many were based on mutual respect and trade. Mountain men often learned from the Native Americans, adopting their languages, customs, and survival skills. Intermarriages between mountain men and Native American women were not uncommon, further intertwining their cultures. A unique feature of the mountain man culture was the rendezvous system. These were annual summer gatherings where trappers and mountain men came together to sell their furs and restock their supplies. Beyond their economic importance, these events served as a rare opportunity for social interaction, helping to break the monotony and isolation of their typically solitary lives. I'm certain many of their conversations went something like, "Hey, Jim," and they'll be like, "Oh, hey, Johnny, how's the mountain life treating you?" And they just kind of stare coldly into the distance, and they're just like, "Good." Just those really long, awkward pauses because they're not used to having human interaction while they're out there. Or, it's kind of like after COVID, how everyone just seemed to be a little different in public settings where they're a little more like aloof. I feel like that's how all of the mountain men interactions went. Anyways, mountain men also played a pivotal role in exploring and mapping the American West. They traversed territories that were largely unknown to Euro-Americans, paving the way for later settlers and explorers. Figures such as Jedediah Smith, Jim Bridger, and Kit Carson became legendary for their exploration efforts, significantly contributing to the expanding knowledge of the vast western territories of the United States. And there's a lot of really interesting tales there, a lot of quarrels. I do kind of want to explore those figures later on. I might even do like a little mini Mountain Men series, because I've been having a lot of fun with this episode, not going to lie. So prepare your assholes for that. I don't know why you have to prep your assholes. I just started saying it, and I was like, yeah, that sounds right. I'm going to finish what I'm saying. Continuing on. However, by the 1840s, the era of mountain men began to decline. The fur trade diminished as fashion trends in Europe changed. The beaver fur caps weren't as cool anymore. People are more into top hats and into, what are those called? Like those bowler caps. They're super into it. That was the shit back then. And then fur caps would come around again, about 40 years later, after the parents who used to really like wearing fur caps were kind of done with it. And then their kids started wearing it. And, they kind of turned and be like, oh, those are making a comeback. Cool. And so they try to wear it again. And the kids were like, fuck. And so they died off again. And yeah, just, they couldn't make as much money anymore. Additionally, as more settlers moved west, the once remote and wild territories became increasingly accessible and less isolated, signaling the end of the mountain men's dominance in these regions. And despite their decline, the legacy of the mountain men endures. They are remembered as the symbols of American individualism and adventure, crucial in shaping the narrative of the American West. Their stories, often romanticized in literature and film, continue to capture the imagination, representing a unique and adventurous chapter in American history. The mountain men's contributions to exploration, cultural exchange, and the expansion of the United States remains a significant part of the nation's heritage, epitomizing the spirit of exploration and the allure of the unknown. With that said, let's go ahead and get into how mountain men came about. Right, so we're gonna go over some events that I may have talked about previously in previous episodes, but more of its effect on mountain men becoming a culture. So I'm just kind of recapping some events, but through a different lens. That's how I like to do it on this show. If you're not used to it, I like to reframe things. I could take the same event, reframe it from like a bajillion different angles, and give you a whole new story each time. And that's how history works. You look at it through a different lens, and wow, all of a sudden these details are the more important ones, and something like other stuff that didn't make as much sense in this, from this frame makes way more sense here. And that's what I do here. So 1776, we have the American Revolution. It's a good time in America. Having a grand old time, lots of people dying, fucking over the British. Great. So beginning in 1776 with the Declaration of Independence from Great Britain, this laid the foundational bedrock for the era of the mountain men. This transformative event in American history was not just a political upheaval, it set in motion a series of changes that would dramatically alter the course of the nation, paving the way for the exploration and settlement of the West. Because they didn't have to wait for some European dicklord to be like, yeah, here we go, we're going to go ahead and go conquer this territory now. Go, buddy. Instead, they're the Americans, not the Native Americans, of course, because fuck them. But the white assholes who moved here can go ahead and start inhabiting a bunch of other shit themselves without permission from someone across the sea. So, and consequently, because of this, we would have the golden age of mountain men here in about 50-ish years in the 1800s. But first-hand accounts from the Revolutionary period, such as those by Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, offer insights into the ideological and political shifts that were occurring. These accounts often emphasize the themes of liberty and self-determination, values that resonated deeply with the mounted men. And like mounted men, like again, it was a very rugged, individualistic lifestyle. They're like, I'm out here surviving on my own. I don't need no man to tell me what to do. And the revolution definitely began this, right? That idea of fuck everyone else. I do what I want. It's the American way. We do what we want. We fuck everyone. Or something like that. So, these early American frontiersmen, in many ways, embodied the newfound spirit of independence and individualism that the Revolution championed. The American Revolution's impact on the landscape as well was insane. The newly established United States began to look westward, driven by a sense of manifest destiny, which was a belief in the inevitable expansion of the U.S. territory across the continent. They're like, we're going to expand across and no one else is going to fuck with us, clearly. And they're mostly right. No one had any reason to really start trying to go fight all the other tribes and settle territories, in California, because they were too busy fighting at home. Europe was in the midst of multiple wars, and it was essentially a world war over there for a while. It was crazy. Okay. This expansionist mindset directly contributed to the exploration and settlement of new territories, a task in which the mountain men would become instrumental. We needed mounted men. Their knowledge of the land, survival skills, and ability to navigate the wilderness were invaluable in this era of exploration. Furthermore, the post-revolutionary period saw significant changes in the nation's economic landscape as well. The disruption of traditional trade routes during the war and subsequent establishment of new ones opened up opportunities for trade and commerce. The fur trade, in particular, emerged as a very lucrative enterprise. I'm talking people made boogle bucks, right? The demand for furs in European markets, coupled with the rich resources of the American wilderness, created a perfect environment for the rise of the mountain men. So, really, we have the American Revolution to thank for the culture that the mountain men would embody. And then we have the Treaty of Paris in 1783 that would establish the Mississippi River as the western boundary of the United States, opening up vast new territories for exploration and settlement. It was a development that would significantly influence the emergence and legacy of the mountain men. So, again, revolution begins this culture, if you will, of individualism, of exploration and adventure throughout America. Fucking everyone else, doing shit yourself. And that's what mountain men would come to do. Fuck everyone and do shit themselves. And the Treaty of Paris essentially laying the groundwork for the westward expansion that followed. With the newly acquired territories, the United States now had vast unexplored lands that beckoned settlers and adventurers alike. This uncharted wilderness, uncharted by Europeans and white people, rich in natural resources. I need to clarify that every time I, get all this information, because it's like I will acknowledge that these lands were definitely not uncharted per se, but they were uncharted by other people who weren't initially living there. At least their ancestors weren't initially living in that land. Okay? Anyways, this became the playground and workplace of the mountain men. Their role in exploring these lands, establishing trade routes, and interacting with indigenous populations was crucial in the nation's westward push. The opening of these territories also coincided with a growing interest in the fur trade. The lands west of the Mississippi were teeming with wildlife, making them prime areas for trapping, a key activity of the mountain men. And when they would trap these animals, they would, instead of just killing them, it's kind of a waste, right? If you kill and you skin them once, terrible idea. So what they would do is they would trap like a beaver, let's say, and a male and a female, and they would shave them, right, and keep the fur, and then they would kind of take the fur, shape it to some like other skin or like some other fabric to make it look like it was like leathered skin fur cap. And they would force these beavers to fuck and breed them out. And then they'd kind of keep like a farm of beavers. And whenever the beavers wouldn't be fucking, they would essentially threaten them by taking little sticks that they would fashion, and it wouldn't make it sharp, so it wouldn't like hurt the beaver, but they would kind of dole out the ends of sticks, make it smoother, and insert it up the male one's ass. And this would cause the male beaver to go feral for a little bit and start attacking the female, which would then lead to them having coitus with each other and breeding more. It was very fascinating, very interesting to see how that was done. Because again, if they would have just like killed all the beavers, there would have been that would have been disastrous for the wildlife. But I guess they were hard enough to capture that after you got one or two of them, you just wanted to farm them out essentially. And that's why nowadays, if you go up to beavers with sticks, they'll take it from you and build dams because they have an inherent fear of men shoving it up their asses. Oh, man. I'm proud of myself for that bit. I am. That was good. Obviously fucking with people. If I got you with that, if you were going with that for a minute until I started being like, that's why beavers take sticks and build dams. They didn't actually do that before men started shoving sticks up their asses. Woo! Sorry. I cracked myself up, and that's 80% of what this podcast is me just cracking myself up. Anyways. This period did see an increase in demand for beaver pelts and other furs in European markets. So, and a demand for that these new territories were well positioned to meet, I might add. Okay, and then in 1803, we have the Louisiana Purchase. This was an incredible event in U.S. history. Dramatically reshaped the nation's landscape and destiny. By acquiring this vast territory from France, the United States doubled in size, incorporated a region that included a significant portion of the Rocky Mountains, which would become a future epicenter for activities of the Mountain Men. This acquisition had profound implications for the nation and was a critical catalyst in the emergence of the Mountain Men's era. There's a lot of first-hand accounts and official documents from the period, such as letters from Thomas Jefferson and reports from explorers like Lewis and Clark, which we'll get into here in just a second, because Lewis and Clark will be exploring here in 1804, and that's going to be really the beginning of Mountain Men. As this development was crucial for the Mountain Men, whose livelihoods were intimately tied to the success of the fur trade. There were already kind of some mountain men or like fur trappers out there. Just hadn't been called mountain men yet, right? They weren't, that culture wasn't known. And because of that, the fur trappers kept kind of pushing further and further, and it would get more and more dangerous. So they wouldn't want to risk like other people in it. So they'd go out themselves. And this is where we begin kind of like this months long journey where it's like only one or two mountain men together. Which is why in our story today, why Del Guay, or however the fuck you say his name, I tried looking it up and there's a couple different ways. Anyways, Del, he and Johnston were together. It's usually just one or two people out together trading and trapping and hunting and doing all that shit. Okay. So furthermore, the Louisiana Purchase set in motion a series of exploratory expeditions, most notably the Lewis and Clark expedition, which we need to get into. This would span from 1804 to 1806. It was a landmark event in American history and set the stage for the era of the Mountain Men. Commissioned by President Thomas Jefferson following the Louisiana Purchase, this expedition aimed to explore the newly acquired territories and beyond, to the Pacific Ocean. Like, they want to get all the way to the opposite side, right? The detailed maps and accounts produced by this journey had a profound impact and ignited widespread interest in the Western United States. People were ready for this shit. It was an interesting tale these motherfuckers did. The first-hand accounts of Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, as well as those of the Corps of Discovery, provide an invaluable glimpse into the challenge and wonders of early American exploration. Their journals, filled with detailed observations of geography, flora, fauna, and encounters with Native American tribes, were the first comprehensive records of the vast western lands. These accounts not only fueled public imagination, but also provided practical information that would be crucial for those who would follow in their footsteps, including the Mountain Men. The expedition's success in mapping the route to the Pacific and detailing the rich resources of the West was a beacon for adventurous spirits. Mountain men, drawn by the lure of uncharted territories and the potential for fur trapping saw in the Lewis and Clark expedition a confirmation of the vast opportunities that lay in the West. The routes they charted and the knowledge they gathered about the terrain and its inhabitants greatly facilitated the mountain men's exploration and trapping activities. Moreover, the Lewis and Clark expedition played a key role in solidifying the United States' claim to the Western territories, including the valuable Oregon Territory. And it's valuable up to this day. It's so valuable, in fact, that they're super cool with, being disgusting and having a bunch of homeless people and, just people literally shitting in the streets, in Portland. Sorry, people in Oregon. If you're living there and you're listening to this, you probably do know what I'm talking about. I lived in Washington, right on the Tri-Cities. And I covered part of Oregon for my work. I had to go out there all the time. Portland was not fun to visit. I was really scared of getting mugged every now and then, especially in some of the sleazier parts, the more dirty parts. Though they were never too violent. I guess I shouldn't have been too worried. I was just kind of like, how do I put this? I wanted to make sure I was in my car before dark whenever I was near Portland recently. Portland used to be cool when I was a kid. I loved going there. I loved seeing Oregon and the coast. There's a lot of really, really beautiful scenic routes in Oregon, too, that you can take. Oregon is a beautiful state. Just don't go to the cities. Avoid the cities if you can. Go out to the rural cities. It's a little better. Trust me. Fucking trust me on that. If you're not from there or if you want to go, just go to the surrounding parts of the cities. Don't ever go directly in. Not fun. But anyways, Lewis and Clark would actually predict this by doping on ketamine for the first time. I'm just kidding. No. This political and territorial assertion provided a more stable environment for the fur trade and exploration activities of the mountain men, who often operated on the fringes of American influence. So they would kind of stay out of any developed territories, just outside. So they can kind of go back, trade with those territories, and go back out and keep adventuring because that's what they love doing. The interactions of the expedition members with various Native American tribes also set precedents for future relations in the region. The diplomatic and trade relationships established during this journey provided a framework that many mountain men would later adopt in their dealings with indigenous peoples. In essence, the Lewis and Clark expedition was a harbinger of the golden age of mountain men. It not only charted a course for westward expansion, but also captured the imagination of the American public and inspired a generation of explorers and trappers. The detailed maps and accounts from this expedition were invaluable resources for the mountain men that would come out. And you could tell that this really would inspire the kids during this time. So in 1804 to 1806, we don't have the golden age of mountain men yet. That comes in the 1820s, so 20 years later. So kids who are hearing these tales of Lewis and Clark, or even teenagers who are listening to these guys go out and hearing about all their adventures and all the crazy shit they're doing, they're getting in their head right now, man, that sounds really cool. I want to go fucking do that. So in 20 years, in the 1820s, they would be the ones who become known as mountain men. But before we get there, I do need to go over the War of 1812 and its impact, right? Because it's going to have a bit of an impact on here, a little bit of a whoopsie-daisy. So the War of 1812, which was a conflict between the United States and Great Britain, Canada, had indirect but significant repercussions for the American West and the fur trade, influencing the activities and legacy of the mountain men. This war, while primarily fought in the eastern United States and along the Canadian border, disrupted established trade routes and affected relations with Native American tribes, both of which were critical to the fur trade and the livelihoods of mountain men. You're probably not going to want to be doing trade with people that you're in a war with right now. And by this time, the French were kind of over the whole fur shtick. They're more about dealing with their own problems and, their own government issues, which I will go over in another time. But they were kind of fucking up over there. And there was a lot of discussion about whether or not, America should help France. And, America kind of chose not to. So the disruption of trade routes during the War of 1812 was a major challenge to the American fur trade. British control of key waterways and territories impeded the flow of goods, including furs, between the American frontier and European markets. This disruption forced American traders and trappers, including the emerging group of mountain men, to adapt and seek new routes and methods for conducting their trade. The war also significantly impacted relations with Native American tribes. Many tribes allied with the British, viewing them as potential partners and resisting American expansion into their territories. They wanted to get them out of their fucking, holy toilet land, where they like to take shits. That's where they are the only ones that are allowed to take shits there. Which, I mean, they were there first. It's their land, right? And they were generous enough at first, and a lot of the tribes were, trying to, be good neighbors and, understand like, we have a lot of land. I can let people live here. And then all of a sudden the white people are like, you guys aren't even people. And so they got treated like garbage. And the tribes were like, well, fuck. And so they thought like maybe if the British kicked them out or helped, they could broker like a treaty with the British to suppress the Americans and give their, continents back, or their colonies back to the Queen and the King. Then maybe they could get some of their lands back. But I feel like the British would have just fucked them over either way. Probably what would have happened. Continuing on, the alliance complicated the dynamics of the American frontier, where mountain men, or really fur trappers at this time, often relied on trade and good relations with the native tribes for their survival and success in the fur trade. The shifting allegiances and increased tensions during and after the war made the mountain men's navigation of these relationships more complex and hazardous. They were probably going to get scalped or killed by some tribes during this time, considering the fact that they were American. They were white Americans, and the Native American tribes did not take kindly to them. We don't take kindly to your kind around here. Now I'm imagining just a bunch of like fucking hick trash like Native Americans. Boy, I suspect you best begin to fuck out here. They have like a shotgun for some reason, smoking like a pipe. That image would be hilarious to me. It is hilarious to me. Despite these challenges, the aftermath of the War of 1812 also presented opportunities that would contribute to the golden age of mountain men. The conclusion of the war saw an increased American presence and influence in the West, with the British influence waning. British influence waning, if you didn't catch that. Sorry, I'm yawning today. It's just what happens. Particularly after the Rush-Bagot Agreement of 1817, which demilitarized the Great Lakes. American trappers and traders, including the mountain men or fur trapper, well, really, it's just mostly the fur trappers again at this point, found new opportunities in the Western fur trade. Moreover, the end of the war allowed for a renewed focus on westward expansion and exploration. The American government and private enterprises became more invested in exploiting the resources of the West, including the lucrative fur trade and the lucrative Native American tribes that they decided had not turned into slaves, but instead slave owners, where they would start trading slaves to Native American tribes. I shit you not, that's a real thing. You can look it up. You can see it in my show notes. That's real. Kind of weird how the oppressed, you're totally okay with like oppressing, other people that aren't necessarily oppressing them, but are being oppressed by the same people that's oppressing them. Weird idea. Anyways, the shift in focus provided a fertile ground for the activities of mountain men, who were among the few who had the skills and knowledge to navigate and exploit the vast wilderness areas. So, just kind of recapping all this, while the War of 1812 presented significant challenges and, to the fur trade and relations with native tribes, it also set the stage for the subsequent expansion of American influence and trade in the West overall. Because they've said fuck you to the British, kind of with like some and the British were like, well, okay, and backed the fuck off, like way the fuck off. So the mountain men, again, fur trappers mostly, and they're kind of starting to be called mountain men, but not really, as key players in this expansion, benefited from the new opportunities and changes in the political and economic landscape. Their role in exploring and mapping and trading in the post-war Western frontier became a defining element of the golden age of mountain men. Okay, And in 1819, we have the Adams-Onis Treaty. It was a diplomatic agreement between the United States and Spain. It definitely shaped the American West quite a bit more. It's kind of more towards the east, though, right? So Spain would cede Florida because of this treaty to the U.S. And importantly, the western boundary of the Louisiana Purchase was clearly defined. So they were like, hey, we're going to be going to the Pacific Ocean, fuckers. Spain, you don't get a say over here because you know we'll come whoop your ass. That's kind of what the treaty did for them. And really, I mean, Spain was kind of in a tough position back there too. They had enough going on, trying to deal with like Mexico and all of those inhabitants that they were fucking over. They didn't necessarily need to keep going fucking more tribes on the west half of the U.S. Right, so it was good for them. So this resolution of territorial disputes further solidified U.S. claims to the West and opened up new horizons for exploration and settlement. The clarity provided by the Adams-Onis Treaty in defining the western boundary was vital for the U.S. expansionist aspirations. The clear demarcation of territories reduced the potential for international disputes, thereby creating a more stable environment for American exploration and trade in the West. So for the mountain men, who often ventured into the remote and legally ambiguous territories, I say legally ambiguous because it's kind of mostly, it's like informally known that it's America's, like the U.S. government's lands, really native tribes' lands. But, maybe some European country might want to come in and lay claim to it. Who knows? And then fight the U.S. government for it. But for the most part, everyone kind of knew that they weren't going to do it. It wasn't worth it. That's a lot of manpower to go in a boat and then, bring over there. Whereas in the U.S., they could just build their military in-house and get it over to the territory that's being disputed and claim it. Much easier in-house U.S. versus anybody that has to come over and deploy troops. It's just a pain in the ass. So that's why that happened. If you're curious, I was curious. I asked that question myself, and I was like, okay, so that's why. It's just a economic issue where they just did not have the resources to drag out like 100,000 troops to go conquer certain territories and keep it. Okay. So this clarity meant less diplomatic risk and greater government support for their activities overall, and it really did help them. The treaty also had significant impact on the geopolitical landscape of North America, with Spain ceding its claims to Florida and withdrawing from the Oregon Territory. The United States found itself in a stronger position to assert its interests in the West. This shift opened up new areas for the fur trade and exploration, activities at which mountain men excelled. The newly accessible territories were rich in resources, particularly in fur-bearing animals. Lots of beavers who were afraid of getting their assholes, pronged with sticks and making lots of dams. It presented a lot of lucrative opportunities, right? There's money involved here. And when there's money involved, people are going to flock to it. Look at what happened to California with the gold rush. Moreover, the Adams-Onis Treaty indirectly facilitated the expansion of the American fur trade. With fewer international competitors, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, American trappers and traders, including the mountain men, could operate more freely and expansively. They were going to make a fuck ton of money. This period saw a surge in American interest and investment in the fur trade. Lots of people were like, okay, they're making money. This is a way to make money, so I'm going to help fund this as long as I get some kickback. And they made a killing. They did definitely make a fucking killing off of it. So companies, and this is where capitalism does kind of help, did help push individuals into going deeper into the Western territories, deeper and deeper into it. That's where, this private company can kind of come in and be like, listen, I'm going to invest a fuck ton of money into this. And the government doesn't necessarily have the resources right now. Well, some private asshole can come in and be like, I'm going to do it. And that's the sort of concept of how capitalism works, right? It's the freedom to push boundaries on things and to try out new things without risking the government having to intervene all the fucking time and waste resources on something that isn't necessary in the moment And instead, government can use money on other things. Is the idea, at least. That's the idea, or part of the idea. The other part of the idea is like the wealth always trickles down and people have enough to live and have enough for their means. But, we're in like hyper capitalism now, which is like 2 steps away from an oligarchy, in my opinion. So we need to tone it back a little bit, okay? America needs to calm the fuck down with its capitalism. It's great. I love the concept. The concept is awesome. There are definitely things where I'm like, no. Let's calm down. We don't need rich people getting richer all the time. There definitely should be more rich people popping up, or at least more people that are moderately well off, right? You shouldn't just either like reach a ceiling and you're stuck on that line for the next 10 years. And the next ceiling is essentially a millionaire. That should not happen. And I feel like that's what's kind of happening nowadays. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. I know. I'm sorry. Continuing on. Okay. Furthermore, the treaty's influence would also extend to the relationships between the native tribes, right? So that kind of fuck the tribes over quite a bit. So the newly defined boundaries and expanding American presence in the West reshaped the dynamics of these relationships. The native tribes were totally cool with getting kicked off their land, and mountain men were super cool with just boning all their women. So it was an overall win. It was a win-win for everyone. No one lost here. It was totally good. We're going to just ignore this part of history. No. Native tribes got fucked over. Mountain men would pay for women, typically. The chiefs, or not even chiefs, but like sometimes just members of the tribe would offer up their daughters as essentially like, the OG form of mail order Russian brides. It was a mail order native bride is what would happen. And so it's really fucked up. It's a really fucked up concept what happens here, but it did happen. So, and then some native tribes were just pissed that this was happening, like the Crow. The Crow were definitely super pissed about this and about the boundaries, being basically all of America. They were like, no, that is not what we had agreed with the white people before. And the white people were like, well, I'm altering the agreement. Pray I don't alter it further. We Darth Vadered native tribes. And it's real fucked up. Okay. So after this, and because of the treaty, this is where in the 1820s, we really start to see this fucking crazy rise in the American fur trade. Now all those kids who listen to Lewis and Clark and to all their stories are grown up and they're investing in these businesses. They're becoming explorers for these businesses because they want to go on their own adventures. Okay. So with the rise of the American Fur Company, which was founded by John Jacob Astor, this development signaled a new era in the fur trade, one that would greatly impact the lives and activities of mountain men. The American Fur Company quickly established itself as a dominant force in the industry, indicating the increasing economic importance of the fur trade in the United States. The establishment of the American Fur Company marked a shift from the small-scale individual trapping operations to a more organized, large-scale approach, with John Jacob Astor's vision and business acumen led to the creation of an extensive network of trading posts and supply routes that spanned the American West, which was, kind of allow mountain men to have, instead of having to travel, 2 months. Well, actually, it was still kind of 2 months, but instead of having to travel like half a year to get to like a trade post, now there's like a whole bunch of different ones. And you could be up in Montana and you can go down to Wyoming or like Utah or like Idaho and have these different like little hubs essentially because of this company. So yeah, this network provided a more structured and efficient system for the collection and distribution of furs, which in turn created new opportunities for mountain men. A lot of new opportunities to keep fucking beavers with sticks, making beavers more and more terrified of sticks and having them build more and more dams, which would then lead to dam. The idea of like using a dam to store energy and have Electricity then come from it too. It's, safer energy than burning fossil fuels, which is great. We should have been fucking beavers with sticks way earlier in human history, and we would have, had really clean energy by now. Sorry, I'm not over that bit. It probably won't stop, so get ready for that. Mounted men, who were skilled trappers and knowledgeable about the wilderness, became integral to the operations of companies like the American Fur Company. They were often employed to trap in remote areas, gather furs, and bring them to the company's trading posts. This relationship was mutually beneficial. Mounted men gained access to a reliable market for their furs and a steady supply of necessary goods, while the company capitalized on their expertise and knowledge of the terrain. Again, that was a win-win for them, right? So mounted men got to keep doing what the fuck they were doing, live their lifestyle, and the American Fur Company got to make a whole fuck ton of money in Europe. So the rise of this company and its counterparts also led to increased competition in the fur trade. This competition drove further exploration and expansion into previously uncharted territories. Mounted men were at the forefront of this push, exploring new regions, fucking over more native tribes, establishing trade routes, and often being the first Americans to make contacts with those different tribes that they're fucking over in the West. Furthermore, the growing prominence of the fur trade under the auspices of the companies like Astor's had broader economic and cultural impacts. It played a significant role in the westward expansion of the U.S., as the fur trade became one of the primary economic drivers for exploring and settling new territories. The success of the fur trade also contributed to the romanticizing of the mounted man lifestyle, with tales of their rugged independence, wilderness survival skills, 12-inch dicks, and adventurous spirits capturing the public imagination. Mostly the penises. It was just a well-known fact that most mountain men had foot-long schloggies, right? And I know you've never heard the term schloggies used before for a penis. It's like a schlong mixed with a log because they're mountain men, right? So it's a schloggy. And that's what it was called back then. Most women, in trying to be discreet, would refer to a men's privates as schloggies. It died out around the 1850s, but it was very well known for about 30 years. And when I saw it, I was like, okay, we have to bring this back. So everyone that's listening to this, I just want you to refer to penises only as schloggies from now on. That'd be cool. Thank you. Okay, so in summary, the American Fur Company in the 1820s really turned around the history of the American fur trade and is what led to this big push into the American West. They were the reason why there was money to be made here, right? It was them. Okay, so with that also occurring, we had a bunch of increased exploration and mapping. So with the mapping going on, the economic push, and everything else going on, we had the perfect sort of trifecta of things happening here in the West for the birth of Jeremiah Liver-Eating Johnston, okay, and his story to come about and to captivate the American Wild West lore like it did. Okay, now we're going to get into the life of Liver-Eating Johnston. You guys fucking made it. You did it. So around 1824, this is believed to be when Jeremiah Johnston was born in New Jersey. Now, this is largely shrouded in mystery and speculation. The scarcity of documented evidence makes it challenging to construct a detailed factual account of his early years. However, some general context about the period and region can provide us a little more insight into what his upbringing might have been like. So, in his early years, he probably would have been taught by his father how to penetrate a beaver's butthole with a smooth stick without rupturing anything and causing blood to come out, because that would slowly kill the beavers. And so he would practice that from an early age, just kind of, taking the stick, ramming it in there nice and smooth, maybe even like spitting on it a little bit, and just kind of right in there. Got probably really good at it by around his 5th year. Sorry. Okay. Johnston is believed to have been born around 1824. Although the exact date and place are not definitively known, New Jersey during this time was a mix of rural and developing urban areas, with agriculture being a significant part of the life in the region. Details about Johnston's family are sparse. Motherfucker did not like to talk about his family. Maybe his dad did teach him how to fuck beavers with sticks, and he was just traumatized by it. If he followed the typical pattern of the region, his family might have been involved in farming or a trade. More than likely fur trade. Again, never know. Could have been doing it. These were common occupations in the early 19th century New Jersey. In this time as well, New Jersey was transforming from a primarily agrarian society to one more involved in commerce and industry, especially in the northern parts of the state. Life for a child in this era would have been largely influenced by these changes, with a mix of traditional, rural activities and the emerging influences of early industrialization. Formal education during this period was not universal. If Johnston received any formal education, it would likely have been in a local schoolhouse with a focus on basic reading, writing, arithmetic, and religious instruction. But based off the way he kind of talks and the way that Dell says that Johnston talks, and the way other people kind of reported to how he talked, I'm guessing he did not have any education. Because I'm not going to lie, sometimes reading what he said or like how they wrote out how he said it was so fucking confusing to me. I'd have to like go into Google and essentially have like a mountain man language translator so I could understand what the fuck he was talking about half the time. There's lots of jers and gens and like Cajun, how like when you try and listen to Cajun speak, it's like this weird amalgamation, like eldritch amalgamation of French, American. I feel like some bit of Irish or something crept up in there somehow. And you're a little scared when you're listening to it, mostly just because of like how incomprehensible it is. That's what it was like reading his how he spoke. Very, very confusing, a little scary. Anyways, okay. So after his childhood, right, in the 1840s, this is where his story kind of begins. Before I start like kind of really reading some of the stories that Dell wrote, so there's a little bit more backstory. Jeremiah Johnston was said to have joined the U.S. Navy during the early 1840s. This is an episode that's very, again, shrouded in legend, and there's not a lot of documented evidence for it. So according to the oral tales and folklore, his naval career was cut short due to his desertion, which was reportedly prompted by ill treatment from a superior officer. However, these accounts are largely anecdotal and should be considered within the context of the mythos that surrounds Johnston, just so you know. That's why I'm not reading out a lot of this. But as the story goes, Johnston joined the U.S. Navy, which was a decision that took him away from his life in New Jersey. However, he found life in the Navy to be harsh and intolerable, primarily due to the mistreatment he received from a superior officer. The specific incident that allegedly led to his desertion varies in different tellings. One popular version suggests that after enduring repeated abuse, probably again a stick up Johnston's asshole this time, just got the good old beaver treatment, Johnston finally retaliated by striking or otherwise assaulting his officer, which was an act that would have had serious consequences in the military hierarchy of the time. Following this incident, Johnston is said to have deserted the Navy. He swam his way across the ocean back to America. No, they were stationed here in the U.S., so he was just here in the U.S. He didn't. I like to imagine that he swam from like fucking France to America. It just makes the story even crazier. He did it all in like, a month too, by himself, just man swimming. That fucking rugged beast of a man. Anyways, he then made his way westward, eventually finding himself in the vast wilderness of the Rocky Mountains. This journey marked the beginning of his transformation into a mountain man, and the life for which he would become legendary. So, giving some more context to this, though. So, the U.S. Navy in the early 19th century, just so you guys can kind of get an understanding of why the story might be true. It was known for its strict discipline and challenging conditions. Sailors often faced harsh treatment, rigorous work, and strict hierarchies. Conditions that might have been difficult for someone like Johnson, who later epitomized the independent and free-spirited nature of a mountain man. Like, he did not like people telling him what the fuck to do. Which I get. I mean, I really do get it. So, that desertion was not uncommon in the U.S. Navy during this period, often due to the harsh conditions and treatment sailors endured. Johnson's supposed desertion would have been one of many during this era. And if you know anything about the Navy, you know that sailors do like to, play around a little bit with people's buttholes. If you're military, you definitely know that joke. That's been around forever. And so who knows, maybe there's a bit of truth to that joke. There's a reason why that mythos happened. And Johnson might have experienced some butthole fuckery by his superior officers, and he definitely didn't like it. It reminded him of the beavers. He had to fuck with the stick. Man, he probably had a hard time spit roasting any animals he caught over a fire. But anyways, so the story of his naval service and subsequent desertion is a blend of folklore and scarce historical records. And while the exact details and veracity of the oral tales surrounding this episode in his life are difficult to confirm, they contribute to the larger-than-life image of Johnston, this narrative of escaping a depressive situation and heading into the freedom of the Western wilderness aligns with the spirit of independence and resilience that Johnston's legend embodies. And so now I'm going to start kind of reading little excerpts from Dell's stories and from the book that was compiled of all the oral stories that were put together. And we're going to get into the tales of this man and some of the crazy ass shit that he did. Let's go ahead and start doing that. Okay, so you're just going to read this. So we're going to begin with the story of the hair merchants. Late in the afternoon of a quiet autumn day in 1843, the steamer Thames, up from St. Louis, swung round into the famous landing eddy at St. Joseph. A blue haze, as of Indian summer, stretched from the far-off Rocky Mountains across the prairies to the Missouri, enveloping the trading post and the bright-leaved Black Snake Hills. As the gangplank came down and the passengers walked ashore, the travelers found themselves under surveillance by the town's loungers, by beady-eyed Indian braves looking for who knows what, and by white riffraff, hoping for some chance job worth the price of a drink. One young passenger started up the dusty street, his belongings in a skin sack thrown over his shoulder. A brawny river tramp, heaving himself with a mighty effort out of the dirt, tried to seize the bag and was knocked down for his pains. With a roar of rage, he was back on his feet, fists clenched. The young man swung his bag to the roadway, turned, and looked at the fellow. "Don't ye like it?" he asked. The lounger eyed his tormentor with just long enough for a quick estimate. Whatever he saw he did not like, he quailed. Wiping the blood and dirt from his face, he turned away. The young man went on up the street. People knew not to fuck with Johnson. Guy was scary. Looked real scary. So if he spoke at all to his fellow passengers on the Thames, the young man must have heard of the old trader who had founded the town, Joe Robidoux. Joe was a wizened, squint-eyed, stooped and bent frontiersman. Such a weird-ass combination of words to describe someone. Wizened, squint-eyed, and stooped and bent. That's how I want people to describe me. I'm wizened, squint-eyed, stooped and bent as well. Who could cheat even such a shrewd competitor as Manuel Lisa, who would cheat even his own son. That's such a fucking fucked up way to be described. Man with no moral compass at all, he would cheat his own boy. Fuck that guy. So when, many years earlier, Lisa was setting out to trade with the Pawnees in rivalry with the Robidoux, the latter asked him in for a drink, locked him in his famous whiskey cellar, and went on himself to trade with the Pawnees. And when Joe Jr. fell heir to the building lots in St. Louis, worth some $90,000, which back then, holy fuck, that's a lot of money. His father locked him in the same cellar, this time empty of liquor, till young Joe in his thirst traded for a quit claim deed to his land for a glass of whiskey. So yeah, the guy, tortured someone to get that shit. The old Joe was behind the counter of his supply store when the new arrival walked through the open door, swung his belongings to the dirt floor, and tendered a scrap of brown paper. There was no feeling reflected in the old man's face as he read the few sentences scribbled thereon, nor did he show any reaction as he looked up into the face of the bearer. What he saw was the powerful build of a 6-footer, some 190 pounds in weight, and yet apparently not full-grown young fellow about 20 years of age, maybe a little less. So at less than 20, this motherfucker was over 6 foot, 190, which for back then, 190 is insane. This man was eating the bears that he would fight, basically. He ate his weight in bear. Extraordinarily long arms hung from his thick, broad shoulders. We're talking a beast. His hair was bright auburn, worn at half length, so kind of longish hair, reddish hair, more like brown red. His face full and strong, with a stubble of a red beard. One moment, his eyes were a cold light blue. The next, a dirty flecked gray. So, it just had some weird eye colors there. Perhaps there was in them something remaining of his encounter with the brawler. Old Joe may have seen there what men would speak of later as their merciless depths. So the guy was described as just had that cold fucking stare of death. Like you saw that stare and you're like, I'm dying today. So old Joe would be like to him, old Hawkins sent you. He said he had 3 of his rifles to sell. And Robidoux made no reply, and the newcomer glanced about the goods displayed behind the counters. And I'll need some traps and good hosts. So, says your name is John Johnston, remarked the old trader. They spoke so fucking weird. And yeah, so it's like spelled like Hyar. So it says here, like here. Stay here for the night and I'll fix you up in the morning. So Johnston slept on grain bags filled with corn shucks on the bare floor of the store, locked in, lest he steal from the prince of knaves. It seemed to him that he had hardly stretched himself out before the old man had him by the shoulder, shaking him awake. After a breakfast of venison, corn pone, and strong black coffee, the bargaining began. A Hawken rifle, brand new, of .30 caliber, cost Johnston $50. This was double the price charged at St. Louis, but not out of reason. It was the best make and meant all the difference between life and death, which is true. But okay, and then for his traps, however, Johnston was later to learn that he had paid 5 times their value, since on these, Joe would not have to answer to Hawken. A Comanche pony led into the feed yard by a Pawnee Indian, Native American, was guaranteed by the trader to outrun anything bred north of Texas and cost $50 more. An Oto tomahawk, surprisingly, was a gift. Johnston had brought along a Bowie knife purchased at St. Louis, so equipped now and stripped of money, he asked the way to the best trapping country. Solemnly, Robidoux tore off a twist of tobacco between his snaggle teeth and turned to the Pawnee. After a few minutes, palaver, he spat and pointed west. Thar's a good trapping out yonder on the Big Blue, he said. This engine will set ye on the trail. Fucking, again, sorry, I hate saying that. I hate saying it. Mostly just because I feel gross doing it, but I'm pulling it from the story, and so I'm just trying to, whatever. All right, so by mid-morning, mounted on the Comanche pony, and with his possibilities packed behind his treeless Cheyenne saddle, Johnston was on his way. Old Joe, watching him leave, chuckled as he pocketed his spoils because he fucked him over hard. Old John Hatcher was in Big Blue country by sheer accident. He had set out from Independence with an enormous caravan for Santa Fe, not in order to trade, but not to help protect the 175 wagons. It was the largest caravan that ever crossed the plains, but simply to visit with old cronies And old John Hatcher's going to be important to the story. Trust me. You're going to hear it. Okay, we're getting there. So at the Council Grove, he left the train and then set off due north toward the Platte. As he approached the Big Blue, he saw or somehow sensed human activity below the riverbank. A large kingfisher, usually the most wary of birds, sat so low in the branches of a small cottonwood and so engrossed by whatever was going on down by the stream as not to see the approaching horseman. Hatcher, with acumen developed in hundreds of ticklish situations, dead-reined his horse on the prairie, dismounted, and circled around on foot so as to not surprise both the sentinel bird and the object of its interest. To young Johnston, bending over beneath the bank as he prepared a trap set, the sudden feeling of a stick being rammed up his asshole by the mountain man came like a clap of thunder. He was being beavered. He was being bamboozled and beavered all over again. No, the voice of the mountain man came like a clap of thunder. Cuss me for a Kiowa, but your back makes a good target for a red, not good word. I'm not going to say that word. A rear. So Johnston froze as its fame as sentinel belied. Johnston froze as its famous sentinel belied. The kingfisher emitted a raucous cry and sailed from the cottonwood. And by the way, that word that he said was the N-word. I'm definitely not going to say that. I'm going to avoid saying any slurs as possible. Injun's just kind of less of like a, I don't know. It's not like a slur. It's not like the N-word. So I'm just not going to say the N-word ever. So there's no reason to say it. You guys know how white people were back then. They sucked. But that's what he said. Now good. And it's continuing on the story. A man may be a greenhorn, but possessed of intuition, and somehow the young trapper knew not to compromise his life by reaching out for his rifle. Instead, he turned slowly and faced his accoster. The latter stood above him at the edge of the prairie, holding his hawk and rifle loosely, but with the muzzle staring at Johnston and the hammer drawn. He was getting ready to blow his fucking brains out, basically. Johnston was in trouble. So, in large outline against the afternoon sky, Johnston saw the very picture of a mountain man. This was Johnston's first encounter with a mountain man. This is Hatcher will be the guy who teaches Johnston the mountain man lifestyle. So, long blonde hair hung well below Hatcher's shoulders. A heavy beard of the same hue graced his ruddy countenance. Over 6 feet in height and weighing well over 200 pounds. That's right. Both these motherfuckers were beasts. He was dressed in the best cured buckskin from Blackfoot tanners. Beaded and fringed with crow finery, his moccasins were of Shan make, and the beaded rim of his beaver cap was Shoshone craftsmanship. Man was decked out from, toes to the head. Like, goddamn. From his belt of buffalo hide hung a hatchet, a bowie knife, a powder horn, and a metal ring for holding scalps. Even as Johnston was taking this all in, the mountain man let down the hammer of his rifle and leaped the 10 feet to the river shore. "What are you doing here, son?" he asked. "What are you doing here, son?" he asked, and put forth a brawny hand. Johnston led the older man's gaze to his trap, then explained, "I heard from in St. Joe's trappings good hereabouts." Hatcher laughed loud and long. And then he would say, "That's a good one," he said. "This place were clean trapped out before 25. So referring to 1825. He looked hard at Johnston, studied the greenhorn victim of Robidoux' practical joke, and saw in him, greenhorn or no, a likely partner. Kicking at the trap with disdain, he said, "Come along with me, but leave these things here. Where we're going, we makes our own traps." Fucking crazy speak. Again, reading this, it's like an eldritch nightmare. Okay? Really fucking with my brain. But I'm doing it for you guys. I do it for you. Okay? So, I'm continuing on. He next turned to Johnston's horse. He inspected the animal very carefully, raising each foot in turn and watching the reflexes, looking at the teeth, and stepping back at last to watch in admiration as the pony danced about. "Wonders come and wonders go," he said. Now, how come old Joe sold ye a sound of fiery horse such as this?" Goddamn, so hard to read. The two new partners ate boiled jerked venison that night. They sat by a campfire in the vastness of the plains, and Hatcher, ever willing to talk, spoke of mountain men and mountain ways. Johnston listened and even asked a few questions. Perhaps his native doubtness was less evident in the presence of so much wisdom. When morning came and they rode into the west, Hatcher pointed to his partner's present from Robidoux, the auto tomahawk. Don't use it lessen ye hafter, he said. And then, observing Johnston's astonishment, added, spoils the scalp. Tress scalps, he averred, brought big money on the English market. That's the illegal trading part of there. And the young trapper wanted to know why. So he said, hangs them up in them parlors, suspect so, the Hatcher surmised. He's just kind of guessing why it's popular there. I'm thinking Hatcher's wrong here. It's probably because they're fucked up and wanted a human scalp. Morbid curiosity has been around in humans since humans have been around. They pressed hard for the mountains, since according to the mountain man, it was of utmost importance they arrive in Uinta country before snows piled up on the divide. Which, if you live anywhere near Uinta County, even to this day, it is important to be doing shit or like in a place before snow comes up, because that will fuck you over till it is done and melted. So just had a rant there. I've driven in that snow and it's fucking awful. They made camp. Wow, look at me complaining about having to drive in the snow and these motherfuckers lived in it. Continuing on for sure this time. They made camp only when darkness fell upon the prairie and were up and breakfasted and on their way. I love that term, breakfasted, and on their way each day long before the sunrise. When on the trail, Hatcher was as silent and uncommunicative as an Indian, Native American. He kept his nose to the wind and his eyes along the skyline. At night, however, when all had been snugged, with the horses safely staked nearby, he spilled his wilderness lore as if from a flowing fountain. Johnston took it all in as they lay quietly, feet to the fire and shoulders propped against the Indian saddles. It was like that scene from It's Always Sunny when DeVito's character is like, I don't like talking to therapists. They unzip me. And now you unzip me. He's talking about like the girl he kissed when he was put in the school for kids with learning disabilities. He's like, not her. She was beautiful. Not her. He starts like freaking out. It was like that. Imagine that. But like with him talking about how many beavers he had to, fuck with a stick. So he would say, remember, young'un, you must never give a raccoon a chance. Oh, fuck. I thought he was referring to like the coon as like the, like Coon and Friends, like from South Park, but no, he's using the slur. So I will be bleeping that out. Tyler, remember that when you are editing tonight. I'll just be the first count coup. Otherwise, you'll be nowhere. And if you don't get the beaver a fucking, and you don't start doing that, you're never going to have enough beavers to sell fur with. Sorry. It's just that idea of like how fur trapping worked, being like that, makes me giggle. So far along in the middle of one afternoon, as they were entering the foothills, a dozen Arapahoes swept down upon them. At first fire, Johnston caught an arrow in the flesh of his right shoulder, but despite this, he felled one of the attackers, while Hatcher drowned two before the others fled out of rifle range. The young trapper started forward for the coup, but found himself preemptively halted. We'll get there first, said Hatcher. So fun to read. We'll get that arrow out first is what he's trying to say, but, because they're mountain men, they can't speak normal. They can't, talk good. God, how did anyone understand anyone back then with the way they speak? My God. Anyways, Johnston stood stoically while, the Hatcher would rip out the arrow. So, and he was like, haven't you got no feelings? As he's pulling it out, that stun went deep, and Johnston apparently stood there and just did nothing. His only reply was to load his rifle. And this is where in the story you start getting like, oh, they're definitely playing this up. There's no fucking way. He just had an arrow in his shoulder, got it ripped out, and was like, I'm good. I don't know. I've never been shot with an arrow, but I would imagine it does not feel great, especially with splinters being inside of you. Probably not great. So they advanced, leading their horses toward the fallen Native Americans that they killed. Hatcher took advantage of the occasion to expound upon the Arapaho character and would say these slur are treacherouser than most, meaning they're probably more pissed off than other native tribes about white people being in their lands. And then Johnston would point and say one of them's still living. And the story goes that Hatcher drew his bowie, and as Johnston pointed, the wounded brave attempted to draw his scalping knife, but was too late, and the mountain and Hatcher's blade was buried in his chest. And then Hatcher said, let's continue on. So he sank his bowie knife into the soft earth, pulled it out again clean and bright. Coolly, he placed one moccasined foot on the victim's face, then reached down and twisted the scalp block around his one hand, slowly for Johnston to see. Now, with the point of his knife, he made a quick circle around the base of the top knot and yanked upward. The scalp came off cleanly with a snap, like that of a whiplash. It says whoosh, which I've never scalped someone, but kind of weird that it, sounds like that. So I'm just reading from the story, and apparently a lot of people, as I was researching, a lot of people agree that's what it sounds like. I don't know. Anybody that scalps someone, hit me up. Just kidding. Please don't hit me up. I don't want to talk to you, and I don't want you knowing where I live. So if you are scalping people, I definitely, don't want to know you. Continuing on now. He would whirl it around several times to clean up the excess gore, and then Hatcher deftly slipped the top knot through the ring at his belt, pulling it until the bloody side faced the sky. Dries it out quicker is what he would tell Johnston. So as Johnston bent to his task, he was aware of the dialed trapper's frosty stare was boring into his back. He could feel it. But he was an apt pupil, and now he cut as clean and as sure as his teacher. And as he snapped the trophy, Hatcher spoke in some doubt. Never scalped a person before, lad, basically. And then Johnston replied saying, nope, never done one before. And it just, Hatcher would express his admiration in Johnston's ability to scalp and be as good as he was pretty much immediately. And Johnston would tell him that slicing a man doesn't bother him at all. So this is where we'll start to see Johnston might have been a little bit of a sociopath. And Hatcher was to remark later on his partner's expressionless eyes. Again, Johnston probably was a little bit of a scary motherfucker. But he did have enough sentiment, going to be termed, to save that first scalp of his own, stretched on a hoop in his war bag. He identified it for White Eye Anderson in 1871. And so Hatcher would go on to teach Johnston how to kill and trap. And he also taught him either the humanity or the profit of befriending at least some of the native tribes. He told, for example, a long and rambling tale of saving a Shoshone chief's young son from a puma, which had already cut and slashed the boy from ear to chin. And Johnston in later years would recall this incident and tell it to Dell, who would then tell it to us, which is why we have it. Okay. Now, during the late 1840s and late 1850s, sorry, I gave you that story just to kind of give you his little introductory into the mountain man life. This is where, Johnston's epic saga begins. But during this time, Jeremiah Johnston fully immersed himself into the life of a mountain man. As soon as he started doing it with Hatcher, he loved it. So this period saw him mastering the skills essential for survival in the unforgiving wilderness of the Rocky Mountains. This era of his life was marked by significant personal and professional development, as he adapted to the harsh realities of the frontier. Old Hatcher would be one to teach Johnston the ways of the mountain. Also, this motherfucker may have done some of the craziest shit I have ever heard of. Here is one story from the Crow Killer book that shows how insane this man was. The myth of liver-eating Johnston presents no hero sprung forth fully developed, but ready for desperate adventures. Johnston's learning was remarkably apt. He himself, in his own words, made clear the fact that he had to learn. From the first, of course, he was quick-witted and powerful. These were characteristic attributes. Trapping in the Book Cliff Mountain region of the Western Slope, he once saved Hatcher's life. Hatcher had wounded a grizzly, but the beast was charging from close quarters, allowed him no time for a second shot. Johnston fired at the bear, but succeeded only in wounding and further infuriating the gigantic grizzly motherfucking bear. His only recourse being the knife, he drew his bowie and stepped between the bear and his partner, who was racing for the nearest tree. The grizzly, a huge male, at once faced its new antagonist, rearing up on its hind legs and lashing out with its terrible forepaws. Ducking under a raking sweep of the claw. Oh God, I just hit my mic. Ducking under a raking sweep of one of its claws, Johnston drove his blade into the heart of the beast. Then, as the animal swayed to and fro, he raced for Hatcher's tree, leaving his knife in the bear. And then he just did that instinctively. And let's remember, he stepped in front of a fucking grizzly. Hatcher credited Johnston with the presence of mind. Smart tricks, said the old trapper as Johnston joined him in the tree. Leave the blade in, and the bearer will bleed inside. Johnston might simply have ignored some general tribute to his strength or bravery or general field tactics, but he refused this credit. There wasn't no time, he said dryly, to pull out the knife. Supposedly this man saw a charging grizzly and stepped towards it and then stabbed it. Like, holy fuck. I don't know how many of you have been out camping the mountains, but again, I mean, there are two things you pray don't come a fucking around, and those are moose and grizzly. And if you're questioning me on the moose part, go out and, go say hi to a moose. Go talk to it. Go see how friendly it is. Grizzlies do not give a fuck about you. If you think a grizzly bear isn't that bad, or just bears in general, I need to ask you this. Have you ever seen The Revenant? If you haven't, just look it up. Just look up the scene. You don't even have to watch the whole movie. Just look up the scene where Leo fights a bear, and then tell me afterwards if you are like totally cool having Winnie the Apex Death Machine Predator come charging at you. Because they will also kill you slow, by the way. Most animals will try and kill you before eating you. Like a puma will rip out your throat and then eat you. They typically try and kill their prey first. Grizzly bears will eat you ass up. When I was joking about grizzly bears eating your ass, I was not kidding. They eat you ass up and will let you essentially try to pull yourself out of its maw using your fucking hands because it bit your fucking legs off. And your guts will be spilling out and you can still be crawling away from it. It'll just be and eat the rest of you. Grizzlies are scary. Continuing on for the story. In his very earliest days as a trapper, John Johnston undertook a prosaic but profitable sideland. 5 miles above the mouth of Muscle Shell in east central Montana, he set up a woodyard, where for many years, in times of lean trapping, he cut and dried and piled cordwood for the use of Missouri River steamboats. Here, steamboats wooded up, and the captain's depositing paper money payment in a knothole in a cottonwood. So this is how he would make a lot of money during this time, right? Okay. And then, having heard the call of the West, he would sell his Connecticut farm and transport his family to Independence, Missouri. John Morgan, like other immigrants who traveled by wagon, put in his own supplies for the journey and then joined a train up the Oregon Trail. All went well for the Morgans until, as what I recorded, the train reached a point near the present town of Beatrice, Nebraska. There, Morgan quarreled with the train boss and decided to go it alone. His start was near Big Blue, not many miles from the point where old Hatcher had taught Johnston his first lesson in caution. Stupid indeed was John Morgan to leave the protection afforded by a large train of prairie schooners with his wife, 2 small sons, and an 18-year-old daughter. But headstrong was many a man who left his eastern farm for the dangers, rigors, and vicissitudes of a harsh wilderness. So, from the Big Blue Muscle Shell and some 700 miles northwest by west, in those 700 miles, the Morgans and their oxen apparently suffered nothing worse than heat. When John Morgan thought best to stop a while to mend his wagon wheels, all the spokes had sprung in the heat, and a number had broken. His wife and the children were ready to enjoy the chance to rest. The wheels were mended in a couple of days, and the wagon backed into shallow water to let the spokes swell into place. But the Morgans decided to stay where they were for a week, or perhaps even longer, before proceeding. Morgan and the boys built a lean-to The mother and her daughter mended the clothing in the shade. There was even time for a fishing, but a lean-to is kind of like a simple structure, something that kind of blocks out the sun. So each morning, Morgan turned the oxen out to graze. Each evening, he fetched them in close to the lean-to. On the third such evening, Morgan had not reappeared with the oxen in an hour's time. His wife accordingly sent the two boys after him. When they too did not return, Mrs. Morgan presumably supposed that they had simply not been able to find the oxen. For she sent her daughter also to look, but shortly after the daughter left, the mother heard her scream. Seizing an axe from the wagon bed, she too ran toward where she knew the oxen had been grazing. She was not long in finding what was there for her to see. A dozen Blackfoot warriors were there before her. John Morgan was still alive, though apparently senseless and tied to a sycamore tree. The great blood-clotted gash in the top of his head showed that he had been scalped crudely with a tomahawk. Both boys lay dead. They killed his kids in front of him and, left him semi-alive. Their scalps too had been taken. The daughter, in her last few moments of life, lay stripped of her clothing, screaming, held to the ground, and sexual assault warning, raped. Several of the warriors now ran toward Mrs. Morgan, but when she raised her axe, they fled. Perhaps they already saw, and like all other natives, dreaded the madness in her. She was crazy. Berserk with grief and fury, she charged them like some sort of fucking Viking warrior, like a Valkyrie. And so inept were they in their terror that 4 of them fell under her axe. They tomahawked and scalped the Morgan's poor ravished daughter. They cut loose the half-dead Morgan and carried him to their ponies. They fled so hurriedly, indeed, as to drop his scalp. Young John Johnston, coming on the scene at the end of the August day, saw in a moment what had taken place before his arrival. Dismounting, he picketed the horse he rode and 2 pack animals heavily laden with grains of his trade and the bighorns. He learned at once that he could get no sense out of Mrs. Morgan. She was, fucking crazy. He was dealing with a fucking crazy woman. He did help her to dig 4 graves and to bury her 3 dead. And the 4th, she buried her husband's scalp. Johnston cut, sharpened, and drove 4 posts, 1 for each mound. He watched while Mrs. Morgan rammed down onto those posts the heads of the 4 Blackfeet Native Americans she had killed. Kind of crazy story here, right? So Johnston stayed nearby for 3 days, long enough to build Mrs. Morgan a small cabin out of cut logs. He could do that shit in 3 days. It's crazy. When he had carried her few belongings into it, along with some of his own supplies for her, he found that his stay was over. As he told Hatcher, next time they had both returned to the cabin on the Little Snake, that squaw pointed her musket at me. Poor critter, she had me skirt. She was that crazy. She was like, get out of here. She didn't trust anyone, which I mean, at that point, I wouldn't either if I lost my whole fucking family. So it was a lonely winter for Johnston on the Little Snake. Hatcher had pulled out for good. He broke his plans to his partners gradually. He basically was like, reckon I'll be getting down towards Santa Fe. He said first, and later, might even get out to California unless you wanted to go there and lay my bones beside the sea. Which, that's, good for him. So Hatcher sent his women back to their people, his women that he had from the Cheyennes, with plenty of supplies for the trip and a pack horse loaded with gifts for themselves and for their families. He gave Johnston the cabin and its furnishings, admonished him, watch your top knot, and basically told him not to get scalped, and rode away to the southeast. Like the stoical Cheyenne women walking off with their pack horse, he looked back not once. Okay, that's right, heroes never look back. Kind of heroes. Anti-heroes in this case. Johnston, surveying his new property, wondered why a mountain man should want to die in so alien a land as California, or be buried by the sea. It's funny because later on he would actually go die by the sea as well. And we'll kind of get into why as we get into these stories. But so Johnston had plans already for the winter. He would trap in partnership with Del Gue, Del Gue. That mountain man of the twisting 6-inch mustachios, who had been of Weath's company of New Englanders. But he remained by the Little Snake long enough to discover that the cabin had lost much of its charm for him. Though a manager of a wood yard, he disliked cutting wood for himself. He hated to prepare his own meals. Actually, despite his dour nature, he missed both Hatcher and Hatcher's Shan women's. And this is what would lead him to kind of want to settle down, or at least like have more company. And why Dell would join the story. And he would, kind of relay certain stories to Dell. Hatcher would relay some stories too. Most of these stories come from other people about Johnston, not necessarily Johnston himself. Johnston would tell Dell some stories, and then Dell would just witness some of this crazy shit, which kind of leads to an air of credibility with this tale overall. So, visitors still came by. From them, Johnston learned that the story of the crazy woman was already an epic of the West. Mrs. Morgan stayed by the cabin he had built for her, which is to say that she stayed by her 4 graves, refusing and even fighting all efforts to move her to settlements. The buzzards picked the 4 skulls clean, the wind whitened them, and they glistened in the sun over the clean white snow. The visitor said that crazy woman, this is what she was called, Mrs. Morgan, hunted in the river breaks for sustenance. She would go out and just grab the fish hole and just bite into them. And over time, she would kind of get like this crazed voice to her too, and she would start kind of like muttering to herself and be like, "It's my precious." she went all Smeagol on people, essentially. Johnston learned too that crazy woman's husband had escaped from the Blackfeet, though just how he came by the information is a puzzle, since no one else seems to have shared his knowledge. Maybe Johnston just kind of really hoped that it had happened and just told Dell, yeah, no, he came back. I don't know. The guy seems oddly hopeful in some parts of the story. Morgan never went near the mussel shell, never saw his wife. Perhaps he too was crazy or had simply lost his memory. In any event, it was not Johnston's business to spread any word as to his survival. In the mountain man's code, a man's decisions and his silence about them were his own concern. He stuck to his code. The code of the mountain man. Now we have the story of how he would meet his wife and negotiate with her father to get his permission to marry her. By permission, just buy her. So, early in May at the Flathead camp, greeting friends he had made a year earlier, he accepted at once an invitation to the lodge of the sub-chief, Bear's Head. His well-loaded pack horses were statement enough of his intention. Doubtless he announced, too, that in one winter's trapping he had become a man of property, with a cabin, home, 5 good horses, rifles, and a number of bowie knives. First, however, the amenities must be observed. There were presents to be exchanged. Because, gotta give people gifts. You gotta court at least a little bit. You couldn't just immediately own these women. The Flathead girl had not only a father, but also a mother, sisters, brothers, aunts, and cousins. Lots of cousins. Johnston's packs were emptied fast. Bear's Head, having presided over the distribution of the presents and setting aside his own, now heard formally and appeared properly astonished that Johnston wanted his daughter. So he repaired to his lodge for meditation, and Johnston attended a dog feast. At last, Bear's Head reappeared for the bargaining. 3 days being thus consumed, the price finally agreed upon was 1 rifle, 2 knives, and a supply of salt and sugar. The presents already parceled out were worth 5 times as much. So Johnston, he paid a good amount for his wife. Go him. Definitely showing listen, I have a lot to offer. Another full week's time having been given to the proper solemnities and festivities, Johnston said goodbye amid a roaring farewell salutation. They liked him. They all were super cool with him. So he and his new wife then headed toward the northeast and the mussel shell. The girl was known as the Swan because her head had been allowed to grow with natural curve, which essentially means just they didn't shape it themselves. Flatheads, like to have flat heads. Through some oversight, her mother had neglected to fasten the usual flat rock to her skull, which is, that's again, I don't know how true that all is. And it's mostly just, I think it helps with cradle capping, I think was the idea, but like it wasn't that great with this tribe. I don't know. I didn't do enough research into why they did that. I'm only now asking myself that question, so I'm not going to get too into it. So anyway, possibly through Del Guy's description of her to his fellow mountain men, it is accepted that she was comely. And she had a fat ass. Real fat ass. And Johnston was pretty fucking happy about that. He was like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. So presumably, since her father had put her up for sale outside of her own tribe, she was relieved to be the bride of a mountain man rather than of a Botan Frenchie. Which most of the Frenchmen would. This is why you get like a mix of French and Native American people. I actually am descendant of one from. So my great grandpa Leesburg, his mom was fully Native American. I think his dad was. Oh my gosh, I can't remember if it was French or something. But anyways, and his mom was related to, it was like the adopted daughter of like Chief Sitting Bull. And so yeah, my great grandpa Leesburg, he doesn't have a lot of memories of his mom, but I'm descended from essentially French people, or like someone essentially buying a wife. And that's kind of fun to know. So I get to see how that worked here. Apparently some people were good. I haven't looked too much into that part of my family history and how that all worked out. But supposedly they were good to each other. But I heard from my mom. Well, I guess it's my mother's my mother's side. So my grandma's side of the family. Supposedly they're yeah. Anyways, moving forward. Sorry. The Hudson's Bay men were reputedly brutal to their women and too mean to buy supplies of white man's flour. So to be sure, when they stopped to make camp on the trail, Johnston sat idle and smoked his pipe, as was his right. It was his right, damn it, allowing the Swan to erect a shelter, gather fuel, build the fire, cook, and break camp. Do all the work. Johnston had the right to smoke his pipe and do jack shit, because he's the man. That's how it works. I don't know why my wife doesn't do that. She doesn't build the fire. She expects me to build the fire. Damn it. So sad. Anyways, from the start, the Swan had evidence that this man would not treat her according to the brutal custom. He gave her a Tennessee rifle and taught her to shoot it. His bountiful supply of powder and ball was hers as well. He wanted someone who could actually, do shit with him. Again, probably because he missed Hatcher and he missed having like a good partner. So that's what we wanted. It's honestly kind of, kind of cute. Like, it's like, he actually did care about his wife. Like, good for him. And he treated her like an equal, which is kind of rare. So, not too proud to learn from her. And although the sign language had served him well in the past, he set out systematically to learn the Flathead tongue. That's right. He cared enough about her. And because he saw her skills, he wanted to learn shit from her as well. And he was an apt pupil. They had no reason to hurry their long journey. On their long journey, they had time to know one another. They crossed the Owl Creeks, and the whole time that they've been married, they've not been able to speak to each other outside of sign language. Which, and he was not super great at sign language. He was decent at it, but not amazing. They crossed the Owl Creeks, and then the Big Ohms. Their trail split to Crow territory through the center. They crossed the Yellowstone and headed for the Muscle Shell. Upon their arrival at the camp, they found Del Guy ahead of them, Del ahead of them. He twisted his great mustachios and greeted the Swan with no sign of surprise. You can probably tell that Johnston was getting a little, anxious at night. A little too many, white surprises found in the mornings as they were camping together. So he was like, oh yeah, the guy needed to get a woman. Or something like that. He told Johnston that he had left the usual generous supplies at Crazy Woman's cabin. And so they were still taking care of Crazy Woman at this time. The two partners divided the proceeds of the past winter's work. Dell left soon to trap in the big snows. He wanted to set up camp before the frost. In 2 days, Johnston and the Swan set out for the cabin on the Little Snake. They would spend time together, and she would help him prepare any game she caught. And she made him moccasins in the fashion of her tribe, which is like so nice. You know, they're honestly kind of cute with each other. Johnson would occasionally bring back her fine clothes and gifts from when he would go out and trade with settlements. And again, this is kind of what makes this a little sad. They actually seem to have like a relatively simple and nice life together. Of course, they would eventually get down to doing some good old-fashioned naked mud wrestling, and Swan would get pregnant with Johnston's child. And this is where we get into some sad shit, because after a long winter, while waiting for Johnston to return home, tragedy struck. Dell tells the story as follows. Get ready for some sad shit, guys. This made me a little bummed out. Perhaps the Swan looked too anxiously for his coming. Perhaps she sat too long looking downriver, toward the bend in the trail where she had last seen him. The Crow warriors who surprised her came from upriver, from the mountains to the cabin's rear, a score of young, untried braves on an expedition which was to bring years of grief upon their nation. Presumably, they rode single file down the shelf of the flooded river's bank. They could not have seen the cabin from any great distance in that rough terrain. When they did see it, they likely split up, dismounted, and reconvened among the rocks. The Swan, it seems sure, sat out of doors as the young crows secreted their horses and applied war paint. For surely, had she come out only when the warriors were beside the cabin, her blood and her training would have made her more wary. They waited, well hidden, until she arose from the bench and stepped down for a moment into the cabin. In a moment's time, she remained inside. More than one could have taken a deadly vantage point. When she reappeared, perhaps with an unfinished moccasin and sinews in hand, they were ready. And little baby moccasins, by the way, like she was prepping for her child to be born. Perhaps she saw the freshly painted face from the moment it appeared around the corner of the cabin. Slow, pregnant, and her work in hand, she could neither escape nor fight off the warriors. Or perhaps she sensed Absaroka only as his tomahawk was raised above her. Perhaps her sensitive nostrils dilating, she barely started to rise. A war whoop rang out over the valley. The tomahawk thudded in the back of her neck. She fell sidewise off the bench. Her killer took her scalp. The Crow warrior stripped Johnston's cabin bare, except for a covered stool, thereby overlooking the large hinge-topped copper kettle inside. Apparently, they counseled and decided not to burn the cabin, in the hope that, with luck, they might later surprise its owner. They took the Swan's pony and Johnston's sluggish, wintered pack horses, upon which they loaded their loot. Sons of bitches waited to take out a pregnant woman. Now, again, this is if this story is true. So I have no idea why Crow warriors would just all of a sudden up and attack another native, like a native woman. Maybe they had noticed that she was with a white man and they were like, fuck you. And they were pissed about that. That isn't really told here. But I mean, I don't know. They may have thought her spouse was at home and they were going to have a much tougher fight on their hands, which is why they got like a group together. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I like to speculate and make up hypothetical situations to put it put people into. So I like to think that Swan, not pregnant or had recently given birth, like if she had recently given birth, like maybe a month after giving birth, would have for sure have been able to kill the 5 to 7 Crow warriors that attacked her. Considering the fact that Johnston had trained her, and he's worth at least 300 Crow warriors in terms of power level. So right, so Johnston's like 300 has 300 power level, and the Swan probably had during pregnancy was probably like a 0 power level, but post pregnancy probably would have been like a 15, like a good 15, maybe even 20 on her own. Like Johnston was able to kill 20 on her own. Definitely, for sure. So she for sure would have been able to take them all out on her own if she wasn't about to give birth. So the Crow Warriors were lucky. It was actually, she was in her weakened form. It wasn't her ultimate form yet. Otherwise, they would have been fucked. Anyways, the story goes on by Dell. When just below that bend in the river, which cut off the side of his cabin, he drew rein. Johnston does. He took his reins and halters and led his 3 animals up to the boulders on the side of the trail. An orderly concern for them. He stripped the loads for their pack horses, pulled the saddle up from the back, making certain, of course, that all were securely tethered before he sat out past the bend. Giant though he was, his long striding double moccasin feet made no sound. He was silent. Johnston noted the dead silence. He felt the absence of life. In cabin or corral. Looking intently at the rock floor in front of his cabin, he saw Bones. Cursing, with his hocken full cocked, Johnston stepped out into the open, moving closer. He heard a rustling behind the cabin and saw a huge vulture take wing. The clean-picked skull of Swan lay near the open cabin door, wind-blown or vulture worried, a little apart from the remainder of her bones. Nearby, Johnston spotted a small round object about the size of an orange, all but disintegrated by the sharp claws of the birds of prey. Dropping to his hands and knees, Johnston scanned the earth closely. After taking his first bearings, he strode to the back of the cabin and sighted upriver, the action being plain to him now. He took the trail. Here, the Slayer's horses had been hidden, and here, their war paint applied. The mounted man grunted with certain satisfaction as he picked up a long eagle feather. Crow. Or this child never ate beaver tail, he breathed. Still going briskly about his business, Johnston walked back and entered the cabin. As he anticipated, the crow had only left the stool. More of a rude cupboard it was, boarded round from leg to leg. From it, he took the large hinged kettle, setting it down and cleaning outside. He elevated his head high, sniffing the air. Satisfied that no crow were in the vicinity, he gathered up the bones of his wife and his unborn child and placed them, with a single crow feather, in his kettle. In his kettle. He slipped from the clearing back into the aspens. He left no trail, save for the kettle from inside the cupboard, which his enemies had not seen, and the bones from the rocky earth, which could have been carried away by the vultures. All was as before his coming. Already the high mountains obscured the afternoon sun. Darkness would come quickly to the little snake. He must hurry. At midnight, on the peak, which had loomed over the death throes of Henry Freb at Battle Creek, John Johnston swore a merciless oath that he would be avenged, and mightily upon the crows, saying, "I'm going to kill them all. I'm going to shove a little stick up their ass like I did to them beavers." But no, basically saying something like that, akin to that. He swore that oath of vengeance, and this is where our story begins, really, for the path of vengeance. And this is where we are going to pause and end today's episode, and we'll pick up next time on part 2 of the Crow Killer. right, everyone. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Take my main takeaway from this is, holy shit, that was crazy. This guy, Jeremiah Johnston, I am surprised. This is technically this past couple weeks that I've been studying him was the first time I've heard his story. And it makes me sad. There is a Robert Redford movie that's really cool that I'm definitely going to go check out after this. From I think 70s about his life. I'm surprised we haven't done more of this shit or had more of another story, at least, or another more recent adaptation of his life story into film. Because it's crazy, dude. And next week you are in for a treat. Oh my God, does he do some crazy, crazy shit that you wouldn't believe. And again, most of this probably fabricated and elevated. The air of authenticity to it is just how many people saw him or would tell tales of him doing some crazy shit, and how many firsthand witnesses to these accounts, of which there are a few, but there's enough of them, and enough of them kind of repeat the same shit that you're kind of like, did he actually do some crazy shit? So, yeah. If you liked today's episode, please give it a like. Please share it with a friend. Go ahead and, just leave a review as well. Let me know what I can do better. If you want to reach out to me, you can do it on our socials. We have an Instagram. We have a Facebook. I don't utilize the Facebook as often. I need to a little more. And then we have a Patreon. If you want to, support the show and you want to help us do what we do here and help us continue to improve, please go to our Patreon. It's linked in the description below. But mainly just, hit me up too. If you have suggestions and stuff, just send me an email. It's historicalquarrels@gmail.com. And I'm going to reply to anybody that sends a message. I'll probably read some emails out. I haven't gotten emails in a while, so that's fine. I mean, people don't need to email me. It's cool. But if you want to be one that's recent and you want to get out on an episode, email me. I'll read it out. But that's all for today, guys. Thank you again. I love you all, and you have a good one. See you next week.